Hi and welcome back to Cheeky Crypto. My name is Nick and today guys we're going to be jumping down into the world of XRP, taking a look at what's been going on most recently and what I would expect to happen next. As I get into this video, if you find it useful and informative, smash that like button. I do appreciate that. If you happen to be new to the channel, then why not go ahead and subscribe, tap the bell, select all the notifications, and in doing so you will be kept up to date with absolutely everything that we do here at Cheeky Crypto. And if you haven't yet joined us at Discord, guys, check it out, linked in the description down below. It's a fantastic community talking crypto 24/7. It's completely free and I don't think you'll be disappointed by what you find down there, so why not go ahead and check it out. Okay, let's make a start with this. XRP paired up with USDT on the daily chart here, and Binance is the data source. And we're starting here because, got some great news to see that we have actually broken above our trend line here. Okay, so this trend line is something that we drew on from the 10th of November 2021. We tested again in March of 2022, again up here in October of 2022, again in November of 2022, and we tested it mid-January, about the 22nd of Jan, and we broke through it recently just here. So now what we're looking for is, can we turn this into a support line, or are we going to just dip back below it? Okay, so that's kind of where we're thinking there. Now, obviously, trend lines are, I guess, subjective to where you draw them. For example, if I delete this one off and I were to draw it from the actual peak of the price, which would be up here. So if I grab hold of... No, it's not going to let me do that. Let me come over here. So if I draw it from the peak of the price right up here, as I start drawing it to come on down, well, then we end up with a different trend line, right? And it's gained 2 touch points, which is your minimum. So yeah, it's subjected to where you kind of draw it. You can draw it in multiple different ways. So for example, we could have been drawing it from this peak to this one over here, and in which case both of these two would have peaked above it, and this one's clearly way above it. Okay, so the way that I had this drawn out, I literally had the most number of touch points I could find. And so when I draw this down here, this gives me the strongest trend line possible. And which is great because it does mean that we've broken through a really strong trend line. Okay, now as we kind of come down here, we can also see that we are testing and trying to confirm the 200 EMA as a support line as well. Okay, so that's also a really cool thing to kind of be looking at here on the daily chart. Now, the 200 EMA in traditional finance would be our kind of trend filter. It's how we kind of think we're bullish or bearish. If you're above it, we go long, and if we're below the 200 EMA, we go short, right? It's kind of the trend filter. Now, it's really early days to see how this kind of goes. As you can kind of see, we've been above and below this EMA before. It isn't, overly too important to think of it as a great way to kind of, use it as a way to say that we are trending to the upside and we're in a bull market or anything like that. There's a number of different times that we've kind of peaked above this thing, but we've been unable to keep and stay above it. Okay, so we're going to be keeping a close eye on that overall. Now, our stochastic RSI is overbought, so that's not overly positive on this daily chart. We can obviously come in here and take a look at a couple of other things. If we throw in the volume profiles, we can see that the volume it's interesting. It's not the best. It's yeah, it is what it is. At the moment, we've got lower volume than we had up here. Okay, so volume is still quite low. If I zoom out, you can kind of see how low the volume is comparison to a bull market. So we are still cautious on the volume side, but it is, I've seen worse, so, I'll take it as a positive for now. Now, when we take a look at the RSI, and this is the relative strength index, this gives us our bearish problem. And this is basically a lower high in price, but a higher high on the RSI. Okay, so if I draw a trend line in here, you can kind of see we have a higher high on the relative strength index going from oversold to overbought, and we've hit the overbought area before coming up into a higher high in price. This is basically bearish, so we want to be quite cautious when it comes to that as well on our daily chart. Now, from a weekly standpoint, the obvious issue is that we are below the 200 EMA right here, and we are in fact looking at a death cross for 50 EMA crossing the 200 EMA, and we are almost up in the overbought area. So to me, this looks like we are going to be struggling quite a bit here. Okay, and again, that trend line, if it were on here, would be something that has just broken through. Okay, we can kind of see it there. We would have just broken through it. So yeah, although trend lines are great, I think this weekly chart is probably the biggest concern that I have, and the way that we're almost up into the overbought area with a lower high, and the fact that we've got this gold death cross happening here on the weekly chart. Not the best outlook here. I would say I'm concerned for XRP to a point. Now, the biggest question that a lot of people has is, are we going, or have, is are we going down into new lower lows? And I would say that it's most likely that XRP probably does have to. And I don't know what's going to be that catalyst to do it, but, I'm going to hold out and say, it's a bit early, to say for sure. Let's see how it kind of goes. A retracement is going to happen. The only question is whether or not this area of demand remains to stay in place. And if I draw on here, you can kind of see this area just here, right? Every time the price has entered into this yellow box range, it's come out very, very quickly. That's what all these wicks symbolize, right? So 28.74 to 32.13 is an area where there's a lot of demand for XRP. You can see it within those wicks. So if we are to retrace anywhere, I wouldn't expect us to kind of break past this area at the moment. So it's going to be one of those. It's going to be an interesting kind of thing to keep an eye on. I'm not going to guarantee that we do come down any lower, but I would say it's a possibility that we should be aware of, okay? And if we do come down lower, then obviously we do have those 26 or so cent areas that we've been talking about previously. Now, as I come down into our hourly charts and we kind of take a look at what's going on right now, we are hovering right in our supply zone, okay? This is the supply zone area that we had scoped out from way, way, way back over here that was previously an area of demand. We lost it and it became an area of selling pressure. Right now, we're kind of consolidating in here, and actually that's not too bad. That actually gives us ground to think that we are in a reasonably good position. Now, in terms of what we're doing up here, we've got a double top high right up here. That makes me, thinking that we probably have reached a little bit of a ceiling in here. And if we take a look at it from a structural point of view, there's a possibility that we can break up out of this supply area. But if I do, I think it'll be very short-lived. And the reason, and if I were to kind of scope it out, we would kind of think of ourselves as in some kind of correction right in here, okay, which is quite a simple one. And then that could be a reset for all of this. And then this is another three-wave structure right in here, taking us up higher. Okay, and if that is the case, let me just move that across there, snap this in to this wick, move this to here. Right, that gives us a kind of high range of about 45 cent. And then we want to do the same, but from this point down here. And what we want to do is we want to see whether or not from our low this side, these two things coincide together. And yes, they do. Okay, so right in here would be where my higher expectation would be, 45.09. And if we were to extend, I would say, we kind of have a maximum extension level at around 46.58. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and delete those fibs off and say that that would be our expectation on that high. That would basically allow us to have a subwave count of 3 whilst simultaneously also having this 3-wave count all coming together in there. Now that there would get us a peak above the previous highs, but not above this high here. So you still end up with that really bearish divergence. And again, I would then liken this to be in some kind of really big corrective structure overall, right? We come down here, we come up, and then we come down again. And I'm not confident to think that that isn't a possibility. It does look though like we have a good ability to kind of hold the ground, and we don't have to come down, but I do think it's something that I would kind of expect to see, considering the bigger economic climate that's going on here. Lack of volume, lack of demand, and essentially a lot of things going on fundamentally in the real world that's going to potentially cause a lot more selling pressure. So yeah, that's kind of where I think we are going to be on a slightly larger scale of things. So we'll see how it kind of develops over time. But for now, yeah, I would say we probably have a little bit more to the upside to be had here. It looks like we can break outside of our supply zone, but I think it'll be short-lived. And then we can talk about corrections after that. Weekly and daily charts are not looking great. The 8-hourly is not looking great. It's only really the hourly and the 4-hourly charts that have the progression to the upside remaining. I'm going to leave this video right there, though, guys. If you have found it useful and informative, smash that like button. I do appreciate that. If you're new, subscribe, join us down in Discord if you haven't done so already, and I will catch you all in the next one.